She didn't deserve it. She didn't deserve it.
Vibrant, smart. She was courageous. She didn't let anything stop her at all.
There are not enough words to describe a woman who they say had the biggest personality and an even bigger heart.
Damion Horton. Those were her last words.
It hurts me to see this happening again.
Just like that, she named her killer, 19-year-old Dajha.
She was loving, caring. Anybody that she came across couldn't say anything bad about her.
Was more than just another statistic. She was a warrior who had been fighting sickle cell disease her entire life, turning her pain into strength and her struggles into motivation. When she became a mother in September 2018, her family said it was the happiest they had ever seen her. The 4-month-old baby boy had given her a reason to keep fighting, a purpose that transcended her physical battles.
These days, always talk. I tell Deja, y'all gonna bury me. I'm not supposed to be doing this right now.
Her mother, Ebony Douglas, could barely speak.
I have my days where I just wish I don't wake up. And I'm like, don't say that. What I'm supposed to do? But God knows, I didn't know He was going to take my child's life. It's killing me so bad.
Stay tuned as we reveal everything about this case. What do you think that Facebook post revealed about Dajha's final days? Was it a cry for help that went unnoticed? Or did it contain information that made her situation even more dangerous? Drop a comment and let me know what you think about this story. Welcome to our channel. Please like this video, share and subscribe to this channel to help raise awareness and spread caution. Let's begin. Dajha Richards was born into a world where pain would be her constant companion. Sickle cell disease, a genetic blood disorder that affects millions worldwide, had marked her life from birth. This condition causes red blood cells to become misshapen, taking on a crescent or sickle shape that makes it difficult for them to move through blood vessels. The result is excruciating pain episodes, organ damage, and a shortened life expectancy. The Richards family had become experts in managing Dajha's condition. They knew the warning signs of crisis, understood which hospitals provided the best care, and had learned to advocate fiercely for proper treatment. In a healthcare system that often misunderstands sickle cell disease, particularly in young black patients, this advocacy was crucial for Dajha's survival. Dajha's brother Atesh would later describe how the family rallied around her during difficult times. "We all knew what she was going through," he said. "The pain, the hospital visits, the uncertainty, but she never complained. She just kept going." The transition to motherhood in September 2018 brought a new dimension to Dajha's life that her family had never seen before. Despite the additional physical stress that pregnancy and childbirth placed on her already compromised body, they embraced her role as a mother with joy and determination. Her son, born on September 8, 2018, became the center of her universe. "Being a mom, that's the happiest I ever saw her," Atesh reflected. The baby brought out a protective instinct that went beyond her own survival. Now, she wasn't just fighting sickle cell disease for herself. She was fighting to be there for her child, to give him the best life possible despite the challenges they faced. Dajha's approach to parenting was influenced by her own experiences with illness and vulnerability. She understood what it meant to need care and support, and she poured that understanding into caring for her son. Family members noted how gentle and patient she was, how she seemed to instinctively understand what her baby needed even when she was dealing with her own physical challenges. The young mother also had to navigate the complex relationship between her chronic illness and her role as a parent. There were days when pain made it difficult to hold her baby, times when hospitalization meant being separated from him, and moments when the uncertainty of her condition made her worry about his future. But Dad built a support system that extended beyond just medical care. Her family, particularly her younger brother who had witnessed her struggles throughout their childhood, understood the reality of her daily battles. They provided practical help with childcare when she needed medical attention, emotional support during difficult times, and advocacy when healthcare providers didn't take her pain seriously. relationship with Damion Horton. 22-year-old Damion Horton entered Dajha's life at a time when she was already managing significant challenges. The exact circumstances of how they met remain unclear, but what became evident through court proceedings was that their relationship quickly became central to both their lives, particularly after they became pregnant with their child. The pregnancy added another layer of complexity to their relationship. Dajha's condition made her pregnancy higher risk, requiring additional medical monitoring and care. The stress of pregnancy could trigger sickle cell crises, and the physical demands of growing a baby put additional strain on her already compromised system. Those familiar with domestic violence patterns recognize how pregnancy often marks an escalation in abusive behavior. The increased dependency, the isolation that can come with focusing on pregnancy and health concerns, and the financial pressures of preparing for a baby all create opportunities for an abusive partner to increase control. Court documents would later reveal that Horton had an extensive history of domestic violence. This wasn't his first relationship marked by abuse, and the patterns of behavior that had characterized his previous relationships began to emerge in his interactions with Dajha. The difference was that Dajha's chronic illness added additional vulnerabilities that he could exploit. This dependency became a tool for control. When Dajha needed help with the baby during a pain crisis, Horton was there, but his help came with conditions and expectations that gradually eroded her autonomy. The same person who provided necessary support also became the source of fear and intimidation. Dajha's attempt to maintain relationships with her family while managing Horton's demands created additional stress. She found herself caught between protecting her loved ones from worry about her relationship and protecting herself from Horton's reactions when she sought support elsewhere. Have you ever witnessed warning signs like these in your community? The intersection of chronic illness and domestic violence creates unique vulnerabilities that aren't always recognized by friends, family, or even healthcare providers. What state or country are you watching from? Share your observations about how we can better support people facing these complex challenges. The weeks leading up to January 8th, 2019, were marked by escalating tension that those close to began to notice, even as she tried to shield them from the full reality of her situation. The combination of caring for a 4-month-old baby, managing her sickle cell disease, and navigating an increasingly dangerous relationship had pushed her to a breaking point. Dajha's Facebook activity during this period would later become crucial evidence in understanding her state of mind. While the specific content of her posts hasn't been fully disclosed in court records, investigators determined that her social media activity reflected the stress and fear she was experiencing in her relationship with Horton. Family members began noticing changes in Dajha's behavior during the final weeks of her life. She seemed more anxious, less communicative about her relationship, and increasingly reluctant to discuss her living situation. For a young woman who had always been open with her family about her health challenges, this withdrawal was particularly concerning. The stress of the relationship was also affecting her health management. Chronic stress is a known trigger for sickle cell pain crises, and the ongoing tension in her personal life was making it more difficult for Dajha to maintain the stability that her condition required. She was caught in a dangerous cycle where relationship stress triggered health problems, which in turn made her more vulnerable to further abuse. But recognizing domestic violence in patients with chronic illnesses presents unique challenges. The legitimate need for support during health crises can mask controlling behavior. The isolation that often comes with managing a chronic condition can be difficult to distinguish from the isolation imposed by an abusive partner. The stress and anxiety associated with chronic illness can make it harder to identify when those feelings are being exacerbated by relationship violence. Dajha's attempts to protect her family from her situation also meant that many of the people best positioned to help her didn't fully understand the danger she was facing. She had spent years being strong in the face of medical challenges, and that same strength made her reluctant to admit that she needed help with her relationship problems. The presence of her infant son added another layer of complexity to Dajha's situation. Leaving an abusive relationship is always dangerous, but when children are involved, the stakes become even higher. Dajha may have feared that attempting to leave would put her baby at risk, or that her chronic illness would be used against her in any custody dispute. During the first week of January 2019, those closest to Dajha noticed an increase in her anxiety and fear. Phone calls became more hurried, visits were cut short, and she seemed constantly on edge. The Facebook posts during this period reflected her emotional state, though the full content of these communications wasn't immediately understood by those who saw them. January 7th, 2019, the day before the shooting, marked what would be Dajha's final full day of life. Family members who spoke with her that day later reported that she seemed particularly distressed, though she continued to minimize the extent of her problems when asked directly about her relationship with Horton. Dajha's 12-year-old brother, who was present in the house that morning, would later provide crucial testimony about the events leading up to the shooting. His presence in the home was both a blessing, as he was able to call for help immediately, and a tragedy, as no child should witness what he saw that day. The morning of January 8th started with what appeared to be a normal routine. Dajha was caring for her baby. Her brother was getting ready for the day, and there was no immediate indication that this day would end in tragedy. But the underlying tension that had been building for weeks was about to explode into violence that would destroy multiple lives in an instant. The morning of January 8th, 2019, began like many others in the Richard household on Orchard Woods Circle in South Sacramento. Dajha was tending to her 4-month-old son, while her 12-year-old brother prepared for the day ahead. The routine nature of the morning made what happened next all the more shocking for those who witnessed it. Damion Horton's arrival at the house that morning set in motion a chain of events that would end in tragedy. According to witness testimony and police reports, what began as another confrontation between the couple quickly escalated beyond anything that had happened before. Dajha's younger brother was in the house when the argument between Dajha and Horton intensified. Court records indicate that the confrontation was related to the ongoing issues in their relationship, though the specific trigger that morning may never be fully understood. What is clear is that Horton had reached a point where he was willing to use deadly violence. The gunshot that rang out through the house at approximately 10:30 a.m. changed everything in an instant. Dajha's brother, hearing the shot and his sister's screams, immediately understood that something terrible had happened. Despite his young age and the shock of what he was witnessing, he managed to call 911 and provide crucial information to dispatchers. When Sacramento County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene, they found Dajha lying on the floor with a gunshot wound to her chest. She was conscious but critically injured, struggling to breathe and speak. Her infant son was crying in another room, and her traumatized brother was trying to process what he had just witnessed. In those crucial moments as first responders worked to save her life, Dajha demonstrated remarkable strength and presence of mind. Despite her injuries and the shock of what had happened, she was able to identify Damion Horton as the person who had shot her. This identification would become crucial evidence in the subsequent investigation and prosecution. Dajha was rushed to a nearby hospital where medical teams worked desperately to save her life. The gunshot wound to her chest had caused massive internal damage, and despite the best efforts of the trauma team, her injuries proved fatal. The same young woman who had fought sickle cell disease her entire life, who had survived countless medical crises and hospitalizations, was killed by someone who claimed to love her. Horton's flight from the scene began a manhunt that would last more than 24 hours. He had taken the gun with him, eliminating the immediate evidence of the crime, but he couldn't escape the witness testimony and physical evidence that remained at the scene. The investigation that followed would reveal the full extent of his history of violence and the pattern of abuse that had led to this tragic conclusion. Dajha's infant son, who had been present during the shooting, now faced a future without his mother. The 4-month-old baby who brought such joy to Dajha's life was now orphaned by his father's actions. The family that had supported her through her medical challenges now faced the additional burden of raising her child while grieving her loss. The 12-year-old brother who witnessed the shooting was left with trauma that would require years of support and counseling to address. The same young man who had been part of Dajha's support system during her health challenges was now dealing with the psychological impact of witnessing her murder. The community response to Dajha's death was immediate and overwhelming. Friends, family, and even strangers who had heard her story came together to mourn a young woman whose life had been cut short just as she was beginning to thrive as a mother. Vigils were held. Social media was flooded with memories and tributes, and the local community grappled with the reality that domestic violence had claimed another life. But even in death, Dajha's courage in identifying her killer ensured that justice would be pursued. Her final act of strength in naming Horton as her attacker provided investigators with the crucial evidence they needed to build a case against him, even as he attempted to flee responsibility for his actions. When Horton finally surrendered, he still had possession of the gun used in the shooting. This physical evidence, combined with Dah's dying declaration identifying him as her attacker and witness testimony from her brother, provided prosecutors with a strong foundation for their case. The Sacramento County District Attorney's Office took on the prosecution with the seriousness that Dah's case demanded. They understood that this wasn't just about securing justice for one victim, but about sending a message about the consequences of domestic violence and the particular vulnerability of victims who are dealing with chronic illnesses. During the legal proceedings, the full story of Dah's final months emerged. Testimony from family members, friends, and healthcare providers painted a picture of a young woman trapped between her need for support in managing her chronic illness and the increasing danger posed by her abusive partner. The trial proceedings were particularly difficult for Dah's family, who had to relive the trauma of her death while also caring for her infant son. The courtroom became a place where they could finally speak openly about the warning signs they had noticed, the concerns they had harbored, and their regret that they hadn't been able to protect her. Horton's defense team attempted to argue for lesser charges, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Dah's identification of him as her attacker, the witness testimony from her brother, the physical evidence, and his own flight from the scene all pointed to his guilt in her deliberate murder. The jury that heard the case understood the gravity of what had happened. They saw the evidence of a pattern of abuse, the vulnerability of a victim dealing with chronic illness, and the devastating impact on a family and community. Their verdict reflected both the facts of the case and the broader message about accountability for domestic violence. In the end, Damion Horton was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Dajha Richards. The court sentenced him to more than 76 years to life in prison, ensuring that he would never again have the opportunity to harm another partner. The lengthy sentence reflected both the premeditated nature of the crime and Horton's extensive history of domestic violence. For Dah's family, the conviction provided a measure of justice, but it couldn't restore what they had lost. The young woman who had fought so hard to survive her medical challenges was gone, and no amount of prison time for a killer could bring her back or ease the pain of their loss. The responsibility of raising Dah's son fell to her extended family, who embraced this role despite their own grief. They were determined that the baby would know about his mother's strength, her love for him, and the joy it brought to her life during their brief time together. Vigils and memorial services for to emphasize her strength, her love for her son, and her determination to live fully despite her medical challenges. The community that mourned her loss also celebrated the brief but meaningful life she had lived and the impact she had made on those who knew her. Dajha Richards' story illuminates the dangerous intersection of chronic illness and domestic violence, revealing vulnerabilities that are often overlooked by support systems, healthcare providers, and even well-meaning friends and family. Her death serves as a crucial reminder that domestic violence doesn't discriminate, and victims facing additional health challenges may be at even greater risk. The first lesson from Dah's tragedy involves recognizing how chronic illness can mask or complicate the typical warning signs of domestic violence. Healthcare providers now receive training to identify when a patient's need for support crosses the line into controlling behavior by a partner. Emergency room visits that don't align with expected symptoms, reluctance to discuss injuries, and the presence of overly involved partners during medical appointments can all indicate that domestic violence is occurring. Dah's story also emphasizes the particular dangers that pregnancy and new parenthood can bring to abusive relationships. The additional vulnerability that comes with pregnancy, combined with the increased dependency that caring for an infant creates, can provide abusive partners with more opportunity for control. Healthcare providers working with pregnant patients who have chronic illnesses need to be especially vigilant for signs of domestic violence.
2 counts. Count 1 alleges on January 8th of 2019, you unlawfully and with malice aforethought murdered Dajha Richards, a human being. It's alleged during the commission of that offense you personally used a firearm, an unknown caliber revolver. So count 1 charges you with open count of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187 Subdivision A. Also alleged you personally used a firearm during the commission of that offense.
for me, I want to make sure when I lay my little sister to rest, she truly can rest in peace, knowing that the person who took her away from us is really going to pay for what they did. You'll get justice. And I'm going to make sure my nephew will always know.
The legal system's response to Dajha's case also provides important lessons about how domestic violence cases involving victims with chronic illnesses should be prosecuted. The recognition of Dajha's particular vulnerabilities, combined with a pattern of Horton's previous abusive behavior, helps secure a conviction that acknowledges the severity of his crimes. Dajha's legacy also includes the conversations her case has sparked about supporting young parents who are dealing with chronic illnesses. The intersection of new parenthood health challenges and relationship issues creates a complex web of vulnerabilities that require comprehensive support and understanding. What do you think needs to change to prevent tragedies like Dajha's? How can communities better support people who are facing both chronic illness and domestic violence? Share your thoughts and help us keep this important conversation going. Your insights and experiences could help save someone else's life by raising awareness about these critical issues.
What is domestic violence? It could be a definition, it could be one word, but what is it? As you move around, make sure you're talking to someone, speaking to someone, giving someone a hug that may need a hug, but let's continue to inspire each other. I tell any young person in here, if a person threatens to kill you, to not say something, you might as well say something because they're going to kill you anyway. But I'm going to make sure someone knows who's my killer.
She the type of person she want to believe so bad in her heart that he'll change, but he wasn't going to change. She was always mature for her age, but it really like made her feel like more as an adult now. And that's something he really hated. Like, you spend more time with your son before you do me. This is her baby. Like, why you're so worried about her spending time with her son? Like, that's what she's supposed to do. And his favorite thing was, that's just weird to me. That's all he said. That's his favorite thing. I just never seen nobody. I know I went through a lot with my 9-year-old dad, but it was not like this. Not like this at all.
All she would say, Granny, you don't know what he's capable of doing. I said, Dajha, please let me know. Because like I said, I was in an abusive relationship for 10 years. And Dajha, she witnessed some of the bruises on my body. And she just hid everything just like this. I had this made. We just noticed, we looked on her body. There's a fresh mark. And we keep asking ourselves, how did we miss that mark on Dajha? How did she hide this? I want to say, anybody, are you in a abusive relationship? Please get out. Because I don't think I can ever get over my granddaughter death. And I mean, it hurts. It hurts real bad because that was my baby. So many nights I lay there. I want to hurt myself so bad. My other grandkids, they love me, but I don't want to be here anymore. I just want my baby back, and I know I can't get her back. And this is hurting. I'm trying so hard to be there for my daughter and my other children, but I'm really thinking hard. I'm asking God to please help me. I don't want to be on this earth. I can't make it without Dajha.
We've all witnessed this, the tragedy of Dajha. We witnessed this over the last couple of weeks happen in our community, and it's impacted us all. Lord, we all know what it feels like to have a defining moment. We pray that this is a defining moment that changes the trajectory of this community of black women, but more so than that, that you would strengthen this family. You would strengthen this grandmother. You would strengthen this mom and these kids.
It's just been crazy because they so used to seeing their sister every day. It just feel weird, like coming here knowing she ain't here. Or me walking in the door, coming to see them, and she asking me, Mom, can I use the car? And you got $1? I'm so used to hearing that all the time. And now I just got memories and ashes.
The most powerful lesson from Dajha Richards' story may be that strength and vulnerability can coexist. She was simultaneously a warrior fighting sickle cell disease and a victim trapped in an abusive relationship. Her courage in identifying her killer, even as she lay dying, ensured that justice would be served. But her death reminds us that even the strongest people need and deserve protection from those who will harm them. Dah's memory lives on through her son. Through the awareness her case has created about the intersection of chronic illness and domestic violence, and through the commitment of those who knew her to prevent other families from experiencing similar tragedies. Her life, though brief, had meaning and impact that extends far beyond the violence that ended it.